Welcome to the Gnarly Girls podcast.
What's up, gnarly beings?
This is a loose-lipped, unfiltered, raw-dogging, stripping down of culture.
No fucks, no panties. This is a labia of love.
We're your hosts, Tony Naj
and Serafina Supernova. And this is Gnarly Girls.
Five, six, seven, eight. Poppin' bottles with the Pope, poppin' bottles with the Pope.
I'm trying to choke with the Pope. I feel like he could use the healing of the grandmother cannabis.
Toking with the Pope is also a vibe. We should have potentially done that, but we're not. We're going to keep it clear. We're going to keep it clear-headed for this.
Yeah, we're like sober.
Let's talk about this Pope and the information about it. I did think it was interesting. He was an altar boy. What did you think about that?
I have on my Google Doc in all caps, he was an altar boy, ... So that is what I think about that.
Yeah, because obviously we are bringing that up because he has some sexual allegation, grapo defendo, wasn't exactly behaving in a way that one would hope a pope would act around this topic. So obviously one has to wonder, is he potentially a victim in the 80s? When was he an altar boy?
Well, he was ordained in 1982, so I assume when he was an altar boy,
the 60s, or because he was born in the 50s. He's an older man.
Yeah. He's 69, which I thought was funny. I'm like, the Pope is 69. LOL. And Leo, what a name.
Yeah. Okay, so is he molesto? We don't know, but we question it because of his activities. I would like to talk about why you think there's so much molesto in the Catholic Church, because I have my thoughts, but do you want to tell me yours first?
Sure. Yeah. And I also want to go back to the fact that he is burying information, and like, why would someone bury information? Like, what is the point of that? Are you ashamed of something that happened to you? Are you ashamed of something that you have done? Did you do something because something happened to you? This is grape culture. So I thought something that really struck me when I was like watching the video of the first like service was all of, what are they called? Cardinals?
They're Klansmen?
No, they're called cardinals. They're
they were giving Klansmen vibes.
They were giving Klansmen vibes, and I was really struck. I'm gonna take these bitches off. I was wearing some rhinestone sunglasses, but I want to see my notes because they're actually very good. I was watching the first mass and was truly so triggered. Because first of all, some people just have no business singing. I'm not one of these people that's like, everyone should sing. Everyone has a good voice and everyone should be singing. Why is the singing so bad in Catholic Mass? Like, it's truly disrespectful to the throat chakra. And also I was reminded at how boring specifically Catholic sermons are. Like, I made my first Holy Communion. I pieced out before I got confirmed and switched to like evangelical Christian church land as a tween. So I missed out on the whole confirmation thing, but I was like, wow, Catholic Mass is truly actually so boring. And I can say that because I come from the Catholics. And then I was looking at all of these cardinals, just like a sea of like red hats and like singing and chanting. And the way that they just constantly are repeating things like, I repent, I have sinned, I've been bad, I acknowledge that I was bad. I was like, man, this really is some like BDSM vibes. Like, all of these cardinals are just subs, and this Leo guy is like an unconsensual dom, and this like same spell work, this same like spelling of this text has been used for so long to keep all of these cardinals thinking that they were born sinners. And no wonder there's so much sexual assault and grapiness in the church, because all these people either believe they were born sinners or other people are born sinners. And so fundamentally, I think there's this like psychological orientation towards humanity, that humanity is inherently just like flawed, you're born broken. And also, specifically in the Catholic Church, you have to go through the priest to get to God, which isn't true in like non-denominational like Christianity world, which has become more popular. But in Catholic Mass, like the point of having the priest is like you need to go to the priest to confess your sins. You need to go to what's not called confessional. What's it called again? I like blocked it out. When
It
you
is called
It's
confession.
called confessional. Yeah. Like, go, oh my gosh, so traumatizing. Go to confessional. Tell the daddy priest your sins. Tell daddy priest all these things you've done so wrong. Like, it's truly so kinky. And then you got to go through this man to get to God. That's crazy.
Okay, you still didn't really answer the question. I mean, you kind of did.
Yeah, no, why do I think there is so much grapey
Molesto.
molesto? Because there's so much like control and like rhythmic spell work oriented psychological orientation to people being fundamentally broken. And I think when you have a bunch of broken people thinking they're broken, then have at it. And it's also very male dominated, very male consciousness, very daddy.
Right, this is what I think.
Yeah, tell me what you think.
I also was raised in a Catholic church. I went to church every Sunday until I was a teenager. But I concur that the boredom
Oh,
was real. However, I do think that the fact that it was so boring, it made it for me to be like kind of, I was not resonating with the indoctrination because I was spacing out.
yeah.
I was really not paying attention. So I had no idea what was going on. And also the language, you're kind of like saying these sermons or you're singing these songs, and the language is very archaic. And so I didn't connect to the language. So I had no clue what was happening. But my grandmother was super religious, super Catholic, very, very into it. She used to make us watch this movie called Jesus of Nazareth, where there was
You
this,
know,
seen it? Yeah, where they like I think it's King Harold kills all the babies, Herod, it within 100-mile radius. And then my grandmother and I would weep at all the baby killing. So I have some connection to this. I will say that I do think that I used the Catholic ritual as a meditation, just being there. I would have to kind of examine my own psyche and consciousness and contemplate death, because you're looking at all these crosses everywhere. But this is what I think about molesto.
and then I have another point.
Okay, I want to hear it. But I think that it's almost like the community of the church is so rooted in the historical Roman and Greco relationship to the man and the lover boy, which is talked about consistently in like the early ancient Greek culture. So you would have this concept of the eros, which is the older man, and the eromenos, which is the beloved, the lover and the beloved. And this relationship was considered very sacred. And these men that were the older would see themselves as a mentor to these boys, and they were like passing on information. And from what I understand, the way that they would like do the sexual orientation, it wouldn't be penis inside the butt. It would be like a hot dog situation. I think it was called like intercoital, where you would put the penis in between the butt cheeks of the young boy and you would do a hot dog. So it wasn't like penetration. I think it's called intercoital. And that was like the tradition that was socially acceptable. And so, obviously the Greeks then heavily influenced the Romans, who are heavily influencing the culture of Catholicism. So my belief system is that this is an ancient practice of the lover and the beloved that's actually seen as not only acceptable, but like potentially holy. And it just hasn't been let go of because this is like it's a contagious culture that is truly thousands of years old. You wonder something really weird? That all came to me right when I started speaking. I actually had no idea I was going to say any of that.
I love that. And why is my first slut thought, man, why haven't I had my husband do that with his penis in my butt cheeks? That sounds really fun. And then that's interesting. I need to contemplate that for a little while. Um, I think also because like Christianity essentially took so much from different cultures and like religions and practices and sacred holy rituals that Christianity at large is like very confused. Like they're not even sure what ritual they're actually doing. Like I think most Christians don't understand that like even though they don't want to like practice witchcraft, they're going to church and they're speaking these same like prayers or mantras or spells every Sunday, and they are doing witchcraft. And like there is nothing witchier than the Catholic Church, frankly. Like that it's scary in there, especially the really wealthy ones. Um so yes, interesting observation. I do think that there's also a lot of repressed, like if you really want to become like a cardinal or like a priest, like you're freaky. Like that's a freaky desire.
But I don't think it's just about repression because obviously molesto is much deeper than sexual repression because it's not just like every repressed culture has molesto. It's extending into a global circumstance. And the molesto within Catholicism is much more than, say, like Buddhist monks. I think it's specific. And I do think Rome is a part of it. Because the other thing that's interesting about the like the Pope being American, right? So you have this lineage of empire, and the lineage of empire goes like Greeks to Romans to England to the United States. And then you think about the translation of the Bible being the King James translation, right? So everyone reads the King James translation. So the empire heavily influenced the translation of the Bible that everybody reads. And so if we're going to talk about like the relationship between politics and the church, it is rooted in the King James Bible, who was like, that King James was chaotic and abusive and, and like incredibly like horrendous human. It's not like he was like exhibiting like a high level of morals. If you want to have some nightmares, go research the activities of King James. So I do believe that this being an American pope is very interesting when it comes to the lineage of the empire, where currently America has the brand of being the expanding empire, but isn't America just an extension of England, which is just an extension of Rome? Like Rome is just still the same empire as it ever was. It's the same as it ever was.
Yeah. I mean, yes, agree. I think when it comes to the repression and like the freakiness and the ritual of all of the things specifically Catholic and like specifically connected to the Vatican, like there is this like it is like it is high femme. It's like feminine. It's like ornate. Like there's candles, there's like velour headpieces and fabrics and drapes, and I feel like in order to be interested in all of that and then not like express it in your genitals, like there has to be this like strong set of rules to like keep it contained. And then
But why the children? Why not just like a priest
because
having lots of gay sex?
because it's the most like taboo. It's like what we've talked about before, I feel like around pedophilia, like it's like you have to go to that next extreme. Like I was listening to an interview of a survivor of being raped by a priest, and what is the association? It's called SNAP, the survivors of Oh, great. Now I have to look it up. Hold on. What's it called? The SNAP organization. Like there's a whole organization. Oh yeah. The Survivor Network of Those Abused by Priests is like a whole actual group. Like it's a whole organization of people. And he was talking about how one of the priests specifically, who our friend Leo, not our friend, the Pope Leo, like covered up information around. Essentially, one of these priests laid in bed with this 6-year-old girl, like on a Catholic retreat in some like meadow somewhere in Peru, just because he could. And the girl was like, I don't know why this priest is like getting into bed with me. I'm 6 years old. Like, we're just supposed to be out here learning about Jesus in the Bible in this meadow. But instead, the priest is like getting into bed with her. And it's like, why do men do any of this? Because they can. Because they can. And it is, I think I think that's such a keen observation, like the Roman influence of culture and the way that that is inherently a part of Christianity, because the Roman Empire is the one who put out the initial propaganda of the Bible.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that the majority of these priests are doing this because it's taboo. I think they're doing it because it's actually considered like part of the culture in a way that's beneficial to the younger person. Like I'm because like of course there is the guru mentality that we've seen over and over again. Like someone has power and then that power makes them exploit someone weaker for their sexual perversions. I just feel as if there's something about, going down the holy path. And maybe this is true of gurus as well. It's like you believe you're doing this person a favor. There's something where you're not seeing it as violence. And I'm not sure. I'm just questioning because I know that culturally with the Greeks, this was not seen as violence. This was seen as the most sacred relationship. Like the Greeks didn't have a use for women. Like that's the other thing that I think is really interesting is the lack of women. There's so few female voices and like the nuns are like quiet and they have their habits and like get the hell out of here you nuns. Like there are nuns, but the representation of the female within the Catholic Church, it's so much maleness, right?
And
Because
that
it's like they had no use for women. They were not interested. And it's funny, one quote I saw from this guy, like talking about women, he was like, yeah, like it'd be cool to have some women involved. Sometimes they say interesting things. Like that's not the quote, but it I laughed so hard because I was like, wait, that is a like on several, this is the quote. On several occasions, we have seen that their point of view
I'm
is.
sorry. My husband is playing Bluetooth through the entire house. He's giving you background Seinfeld music.
I don't hear it.
Okay, good. It's over.
Oh. So he's quoted to have saying, on several occasions, we have seen that their point of view is an enrichment. That's what he says about women.
No, there were
Several.
heinous quotes I saw about women today, reading all through all of these documents. Like the church was like, I think the Vatican maybe even put out the statement, something like, it's not that we don't respect women. We honor women and their stories, but we also honor the truth. Like just the amount of like gas.
We also, is that real?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is real. And also, you just are making me think of the way that like they call the priest father, 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 and then like in Christian church, all the fucking father, all
And you do call the nuns Mother Mary, right? You do say mother.
all the nuns Mother Mary.
No, you do call them. Don't you call them mother? The nun?
I mean, if you see a nun, I feel like you never see. It's like you see father every Sunday mass, but rarely do you see a nun. I've never looked in the eyes of a nun and called her mother, but I am waiting for that moment.
But you do. Oh, no, 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 no. Wait a second. You don't call them mother. You call them sister.
Right. I was like, that doesn't sound quite right.
That didn't sound right.
Yeah.
I said Mother Mary sounded right, but you call the nun sister.
Yeah.
So it's like that's another, it's like a sister. Who listens to your sister? Nobody. You listen to your father.
Right, right. So it's like all of this positioning, it's like it's benign and it's also like the pillars of the psychology of the church, which obviously influences the state and the entire world. Everyone knows that there's a new pope everywhere, all over the world. You know, like we are all looking. It's like these are the moments where I remember that like the Vatican is more powerful than Hollywood.
Oh, beyond.
But
Beyond, beyond, beyond. I mean, if you
right?
also
Yeah.
the economics of the Catholic Church is pretty impressive. Like there is, I think it's one of like the largest economic forces on the planet, you know?
So basically, with this fucking guy, if you don't know this new pope and you haven't read and you've just like heard some things, he hasn't been specifically accused of anything, but there are multiple accounts from like young girls. Like I think the guy was saying like there was three sisters and they were like maybe 4, 6, and 7, but then you can't like actually report the assault until I think it was like 9 or 12. You can look all of this up for yourself. And so one of the older sister reported it, and then later the two other girls confirmed that it had happened. And in fact, one of the priests even admitted that it had happened, and still nothing happened because there isn't a no tolerance law. Everyone's like, oh, Pope Francis, he like cares about the gays. No, he fucking doesn't, bitch. If he cared about the fucking gays, he would have put a no tolerance law around sexual assault in place. It's like the way that the Democrats don't actually like support like women's health care. They just use it as like a voting point. Like this is exactly what they're doing in the church.
But what does that have to do with the gays to not protect children being molested?
Well, because he was basically like seen as this like gay rights activist, but like if he actually like supported the liberation of people, he would have passed a no tolerance law while he was the fucking pope. And he decided to not do that. It's like filibuster energy around this no tolerance law. So basically, I've heard people be like, if this Leo guy is saying that he wants it all to be like, you know, fine and dandy, then let's open up the files that he sent to the Vatican and also pass the no tolerance law, which would essentially mean that any priest or clergy person or cardinal or whoever these fucking people are in the Catholic Church, they would no longer be able to serve. There would be a no tolerance policy if they have been accused of any kind of sexual assault, rape, pedophilia, whatever. Because another thing that happened, this was in, I think, Chicago, there was a priest that was living like very, very close to this elementary school who was already like an accused pedophile. And that was like under his rule because I guess the cardinals or like these people who are in higher positions than the priests like oversee a territory. It's called something with a D. I can't even pronounce it, but they oversee the territory. And so he was responsible essentially for overseeing multiple territories where he was just burying information and letting these men get away with things similar to like frat boy culture. Like it's the same shit.
Yeah, and I think the greater
My dick from the grave.
no, I think the greater point is around the fact that up to the highest levels, you're going to have the corruption of allowing this behavior to happen, which again, I keep going back to the fact is that it is embedded.
Yeah.
It is woven into it. It's not an anomaly. It's not like, oh, people that are pedos are going into this because this is an opportunity for them to be more pedo. It's like, it's almost like, it's like as you are, it's in the actual like ethos, it's in the breath. It's like when you're entering into that culture, you are entering into, and like the acceptance, the genuine acceptance of pedo because it is an ancient practice.
And there's a lot of excuses in the Bible for men to do whatever the fuck they want. Like truly, there's just like the script, I wouldn't call what the Bible is now. Like after the King James version came like the New International version that all the more like hip Christian churches with the projectors started using. Like that to me as like someone who like fucks deep with Yeshua and like ancient like texts and whatever, like it's not scripture, it is propaganda of an empire. And I do think like looking at the way that America is spreading as this empire, especially with all the energy of the tariffs and how that is like the ultimate just like chokehold, like dick fucking frat boy move on Trump's part. Um, it's the pattern will repeat itself until it doesn't. And I also think that all of these bishops and archbishops, like bowing their heads and just repeating these words about being sinners and sinning and asking for forgiveness and like watching, like, I mean, not just Leo, popes of the past who have also done the same thing, like getting off on essentially giving the collective the spell to repeat back to them. And then it becomes this mass movement and this massive energy. And it makes sense to me that men who are ashamed or guilty of their own actions want other people who they have power over to also feel guilty and ashamed because misery loves company. And I also think like anyone who thinks that like, oh, you need to like ask God for forgiveness, like anyone who really thinks that another human being needs to do that and they're focused on that is addicted to their own shame complex and they're outsourcing that because like again, like the misery of shame loves company. So I think it's also like a shame cesspool. Like it would be interesting to look at the trauma history and the familial history of a lot of these bishops and archbishops and popes of the past and be like, yo, what was their upbringing like? And even if they weren't molested or sexually assaulted, like maybe they grew up in a really repressed home where like, you know, the rules and the order were a part of it, like this very strong patriarchal hand. Because I don't think you just get into this and want to be a part of the Catholic Church unless you've been groomed to enter that space. And the part of my family that's obsessed with the Catholic Church, they don't like a single bit of what I'm doing, even the ones that have died. I have to really pray to go to their higher selves. We were going to call in the higher self of Pope Leo,
Yeah, maybe we should do that at the end.
but I failed.
I also think it's interesting how people keep talking about, oh, well, at least he has these immigration policies and they're using
Blessing.
caveat as something positive. And I think what Americans aren't understanding is that only 9% of the world or something is white. Like, it's not a big percentage. So for the Catholic Church to have kind of an understanding of the global racial dynamics is very important. Like that extends way beyond American racist ideology and politics. And so it's like, you know, they like some of the articles are like, he's cool with the black people of New Orleans, you know, like as if that's going to be indicative of some like racial justice that this pope is going to bring to humanity. And it's like, no, this is about global manipulation and like wanting to position anyone that's within a leadership position of the Catholic Church as being seen by the non-white globe as okay, like we're gonna be into this because like the Catholic Church is dwindling. I don't think the numbers are rising. So that is something that they have to like take into consideration is like how do we keep feeding our constituency?
Yeah, he was like talking a lot about faith. Like there was this huge focus in his first mass about the church desperately needing to counter a desperate lack of faith. Like this is times of desperation around our faith, so we need to get people to double down and believe this thing that is the truth, that is the gospel, or else. And then he said, um, he warned that people were turning away from faith and instead to technology, money, success, power, or pleasure. Like, it feels like it's also just such a grab of the consciousness of people who turned Trumpo in the last election and genuinely are now looking for faith. Like, who backs the choice that they made and what they believe in so that they can feel secure and like they belong to something. Like, this is the perfect moment for a resurgence of Catholicism, especially because I feel like the vibe is like real Rococo up in this bitch. Like there's like a lot of like frills and lace happening. I just feel like cabaret culture is exploding. There's like a huge Renaissance energy. We know Beyonce dropped Renaissance 2 years ago. Like the planetary alignments are similar to where they were during the Renaissance. So I do feel like there is this like resurgence of ideas. And I think with that, there is going to be like even more doubling down. And I was really struck when this survivor connected to the SNAP group, the Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests, which I just can't get over that that's like the real name of an organization. Like, what more do you need than to know that that is the name of a real organization that like gets funding and like does work in the world? So this spokesperson was like talking about, you know, being a survivor, and he was like, I'm just thinking about all of the women who were impacted by this man who's now walking with his smug face, like accepting the role of pope when he intentionally like buried all of their stories and all of the evidence. And yet again, I mean, it's just the same thing. It's just the same thing as we've been seeing.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing that people have been saying is around, oh, because I'm interested in also how people are trying to see the silver lining, right? And they're like, oh, well, he tweeted some things that were uh, critical of Trump's presidency, as if that matters.
People are so
And
gullible and
But
desperate.
I don't think it's about being gullible. I think it's about like really wanting to believe in institutions.
Well, don't be so fucking naive then. Get a brain, get a life. Stop trying to believe in institutions.
But this is, I think, the current paradigm is, so it's like people are like, oh, we're not going to question the entire institution of the Catholic Church. So we're going to say that like maybe, oh, that last pope was progressive, or the popes are going to bring about like more equality with sexual orientation, or the popes were looking for leadership. We're looking for this institutional support for progressive ideals. And I guess like where I keep coming back to is that genuinely progressive ideals will only threaten institutions. So there is no world in which institutional support is going to be genuinely progressive.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that, you know, I am coming away with this is like, regardless of, I'm not surprised about the covering up, but like regardless of how quote unquote liberal he may or may not be, I mean, the jury's still out on a lot of his ideology. It doesn't matter. He's still within this like very ancient system and structure of rules that is going to just repackage the same cultural manipulation of how we can continue to integrate the church and politics, the church and state, like further weaving these together rather than pulling them apart. There is no interest in pulling them apart. There's only an interest in creating more insidious ties.
Yeah. I mean, the headline was Pope Leo has been accused of failing to properly investigate allegations of child sexual abuse against priests in his churches in Chicago and Peru. It's not looking good for you, Leo.
But people, that's the thing. It doesn't. No one cares.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Or they care, but like it's not gonna not. It's not. It's not gonna stop the progression of what's happening. And like I think that's the point. It's like this is very open. It's been very open. It's like it's if you were to tell a joke on stage about a priest molesting kids, it would be a hacky joke.
Also, like,
It would be. Do you know what I'm saying? It's that much of a cliche.
I only know one friend of mine from grad school who like went to Catholic mass and is like a true badass. And like, she's truly the only person I've ever met who's like, I am Catholic. And I'm like, you go girl, you like rock my socks. Every other Catholic I've ever had an interaction with, I'm like, wow, you fucking hate women. That's also at the center of this. Like, you cannot subscribe to the King James version of the Bible, the NIV, the New International Version, or any form of the Bible that came out of the Roman Empire, and not be dealing with a deep hate of the feminine. And there's a lot more that could be said around that, but I just feel like that is like I think we like culturally hate women so much, and that is also a huge part of this.
Well, hate, fear, devalue. I mean, I think it's complex.
And just we're so used to it. It's like, oh, another man in power who's done fucked up shit and got to brush it under the rug because of his proximity to power. What are we gonna do about it? Oh, let's record a podcast and talk about it. Let's post about it on social media. Let's make more art. And not to say that like, I mean, that's what we can do. I think the not talking about it is actually what allows things like this to keep happening. It does seem like there's quite a bit of like ruffled feathers around this. But I am interested in the day it goes beyond that, and then we actually see someone like acquitted for something or held accountable. Like all these people are shouting for the Vatican to open their archives. I'm like, the Vatican doesn't give a fuck, and they're not going to open their archives.
I mean, it's the same thing, the Jeffrey Epstein list, like who are the P. Diddy party celebrities. It doesn't, the individuals only matter to a certain extent. And I do think that if people are looking for redemption, it's not going to be found. It's not going to be found with this Pope.
Stop looking for daddy. We've already said this. I'll be your daddy.
No.
I would be good daddy though.
No, it's like,
oh my God, I had a dream the other night that some girl just looked at me. I don't even know who she was. And she was like, "You're a dom." And I was like, "What?" She's like,
your dream.
Dom. Yeah. It's cool. No, I think
how did that make you feel?
like, yeah, I am a dom and I could be daddy.
No.
I'm like, I am the daddy this world needs. Seraphine a supernova for first.
No, the whole point is that the concept is inherently flawed.
I know, but we all do want daddy to rock and cradle us as you explore your work, as do I. And I think these are the moments where we cradle each other, but we also like cradle ourselves by, I think, having this balance of having the information and then being in a non-reactive state with it, which is not to say that action isn't being taken, but like I think that finding out the information and then letting the information make you dysregulated and then the information making you sick and then just being like kind of feverish with the information, I think that is the growth edge for so many of us who, I mean, myself included, who identify as like activists and anarchists. Like, how do we be with the information in a way that isn't dysregulating, but we still stay motivated enough to like talk about it, take action, but not also be like seeking out debates. Like, who's the next person that I can argue and debate with to move this energy of angst within me? Like, to make more things with it, to like channel it in ways. Because I think the opposite of reactionary behavior is like having this responsive self agency. And I hope that is what we do in this podcast, all jokes aside and at the center at the same time, because it is challenging to just see this over and over again. And I do understand why people's hearts are broken and they freak out on social media and they do all these things, and it's valid. And also, I think we need to be more creative with our responses.
Yeah, totally. I agree. And I think that bringing in the Pope's higher self is a good idea.
I want to pull a card in my dragon deck too, because I got Mother Mary's in my puss right now. She's just like, I'll show you. I actually got this last time I was in.
I have a hood too. Sick.
This is Tony's sweatshirt. Here she is. She was just like,
you know, and the irony of like having all this, like, because Christianity really is a co-opting of like the goddess worship and pagan ritual, you know, and to just kind of the Virgin herself just looks like a giant vagina. We all know this. We all see this.
I will be taking the dick between the butt cheeks, though, for my own personal use.
I think incorporating that in your personal practice is
Like a really clean, lubed up butt crack with a dick just sliding up and down sounds like my nighttime ritual. Okay, the Pope Sire herself says, the giver.
it's a dragon. Okay, well, let's in our most optimistic mind say that anyone that's on a spiritual path and has devoted their life to spirituality, even if power is corrupting within that context, and even if hierarchy is corrupting within that context, still the process of being in devotion to a spiritual force has a deep value. And so, like, what I feel like could be gifted is the fact that there is something valuable in people's devotion. The question is, to what are you devoting yourself to? But the example of devotion is a vibe.
Okay,
It.
Fred is interesting because I actually feel like, yes to what you're saying. I did feel that as I was watching, in the same way that I was like so autistically disrupted by the Catholic mass singing and deeply triggered and like visually triggered
Lamb of God.
on all these bishops and archbishops. I was just like, oh my gosh. I was also like, wow, okay, like it is powerful anytime people come together and like summon the sacred. Like I do agree and resonate with that. And the Christians say when two or more are present, the spirit is also present because you create the Trinity. So whatever. I think the giver, the healer, and the watcher, these all came forward. I feel like this is for us because like we are
In our effort to call in the Pope Sire herself, the cards are for us.
no, but I was calling on the Pope's higher self to give us a message. I don't want to give him a reading necessarily because then we also have the Temptress here, which felt like directly like him. Okay, so multiple things are coming through. This is what happens when I start channeling. So the Pope himself, like if this is all a grand cosmic theater, like him being placed here this week following the Met Gala, like, and having these like allegations attached to him, like, what is he here to like instigate us around in terms of the ways that we're like giving to our communities, the ways that we're healing our communities, and the ways that we're like keeping watch? Like, I feel like these are a direct response to the question of like, how do we be less reactive and be less dysregulated with this information that's coming at us all at once, all of the time, like all of the atrocities of the world? Like, we give, we watch, and we heal. Like, those feel like three very like distinct actions we can take that aren't like but then it's like we all have this like temptress in us. And I think like we've talked about this so many times on Gnarly Girls. The moment that we think that we're separate from the molesto, rapo priest, grapo priest, and like we're somehow better, or like we would never, I would just never. Like, I think anytime that consciousness comes in, and we like forget that we're all one, which I fucking hate, but I also resonate with. We like forget that we also have like, if there is someone on planet Earth who can do XYZ, then that consciousness is also within us because we are a part of that. So I feel like you're really good at holding this down, like not blaming people and not being like a cunt dick. I am more of a cunt dick in this way where I just want to be like, fuck this motherfucker. But this feels like a moment to self-examine.
Well, let's think of it this way, because I keep going back to the cultural aspect of it. It's like, have you ever been in school, like either high school or college or something, and like one of your friends gets an eating disorder? And then like it has this really contagious effect where like everyone kind of starts, or in the friend group, kind of starts like having this eating disorder. And then there's people that get into it more than others. Like some people just kind of like play with it, but others like get more devoted to it. I think that is what I'm talking about, like the contagion of molesto that's so ubiquitous. So you like come into the Catholic Church, you are part of the community, and the contagion of the eating disorder, of the sexual disorder, then it's like, oh, you kind of like try it, and then the appetite either gets hungrier or it doesn't, the appetite for the behavior, but like I remember like really specifically when I was in the 5th grade, I went to camp and I had no friends at this camp because I'd never been. And everyone had like been to this camp. And I was like, I went with a friend who the minute she got there, she just like ditched me for her camp friends. So she's like, everyone here knows the songs, and I'm like, I don't know this song about like Jackrabbit Twist, like I fucking hated camp. So the only friend I had was this girl who had like truly a severe eating disorder. And so in order to like connect, I just ate carrots with her, shredded carrots with vinaigrette dressing. That is the only thing I ate for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I only ate shredded carrots because that was like how I was connecting and bonding. So I do think like that is something that we have to understand about the culture of molesto within the church is it must be connecting. It must be bonding. It has to be. It has to be because it's that common. You know what I mean?
Yeah, who is he protecting? I was thinking about this too. This is a really good point. Like, who is he protecting? Who had threatened to blackmail him? Like,
who was he friends with, dude? Who did he love? Who did he care for?
yeah.
I don't think it's all, this is what I'm trying to say. It's like the motivation for us to do things are complex and complicated. He may have really liked that guy. And that guy might have been like, oh my God, this is terrible. I don't know why I did this. I feel so sorry. Like, we have no idea what happened between these people protecting each other. And it's bonding.
What do you
know? It's bonding. Trauma is bonding. We know this, trauma bonding, but protecting someone is bonding. Someone saying to you, like, I'll never do this again. Please forgive me. Please help me, We don't know.
2 questions. Well, a comment and a question. The temptress is also telling me, like, don't forget that your slutification, to speak in the words of my friend Sparkle Lee, who just did an act about taking a slut drug. She like had this thing and said slut RX, and she like took it and then danced around on stage, and it was very good. It was called the slutification of Sparkle Lee. I feel like the slutification of the world, which is essentially just like the sovereignty activation of the world, the autonomy activation, like many women, especially girls, gays, and theys, like rising in their right to express themselves, is also like its whole own thing. And it is combating, it is like a peaceful protest of the repression of the church and the programming of the Vatican, which is inherently connected to patriarchy and capitalism and white supremacy every single day. And we can do it by just like having our tits out or not, having our G-string hang out of our jeans or not, wearing baggy ass clothes so big that people are like, what's under there? Or wearing clothes so tight you can literally see the outline of every part of the body. I'm getting like a strong energy and current around just like self-expression is it. Like, self-expression is it, because when people feel like they can't express themselves, which is so part of the Christian doctrine and especially so part of the Catholic Church, then they do weird shit. They do weird shit when they feel underexpressed. They got to express themselves some way. So if they can't express themselves in public, they're going to do weird shit in private. I do weird shit in private anyway, so.
Yeah, and I think that like we have to, it's not just about girls and gays and theys, it's also about like men who are trapped in a masculine identity.
Yeah.
And like those dudes having the support, like the genuine like support to like explore their own curiosity around identity. Because I think that like there is a reason, like there is a reason why the patriarchy within capitalism and the patriarchy and the boys club and all of that, there is a reason why that's so appealing, and that reason is self-esteem. So you have self-esteem as a man within that context. It's given to you. It's almost like how whiteness can be self-esteem, because you're like, oh, well, I might be poor. I might be really poor, but at least I'm not Black, or at least I'm not Hispanic. At least I'm not a quote unquote legal immigrant. So you hide behind the self esteem of whiteness, which is the same thing as hiding behind the self esteem of maleness within a patriarchy.
False sense of belonging.
Yeah. So, but genuinely like self love, so it's like that's the other thing, is like how to encourage and inspire like genuine self-esteem beyond identity, not beyond your racial or sexual or gender identity.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the reason I say the thing about the girls, gays, and theys is only because of like the temptress energy and the way that like in the Bible specifically, like women and gay people are seen as like the ones who will tempt, like the Malleus
But
Maleficarum.
who are they tempting? Men.
Right.
This is my point.
Right. So,
Because it's actually not tempting.
no, it's just
Women existing is not tempting.
existing. Yeah, no, it's truly just women existing, period. Especially in the Malleus Maleficarum as an extension of the Bible. The church completely paid for that to happen. Vatican was deeply connected. Yeah, like purely women just existing in their bodies, period. Like showing an arm, showing an ankle. I mean, just knowing the correct herb to use was a threat, because then instead of using the herb, or instead of going through the priest to go get to God to do your healing, instead of repenting for your sins, you're just like using some chamomile, and oh, turns out now you can sleep. But the priest is like, no, you got to come to confession and we got to like exorcise you of a demon, when the whole time this bitch just needed some chamomile.
I need the valerian too bad.
Tony ODs on valerian every night.
All right, I feel like we got down.
Yeah, I gotta go do some weird shit in private, like slide a large dick between my ass cheeks.
Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.
Bye.
Bye.